That's it.
We're going to the vet. We're taking Ujala's cat, whose name is Gaddafi, to the vet.
L10.
Yes.
So cat's name is Gaddafi.
Yeah. So what was the article you were reading? Yeah, I hope you guys can read this.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. But anyways, it says India is the world's most depressed country with...
every sixth Indian suffering from mental illness.
Yeah.
People still misinterpret what mental health or illness is due to taboo around it, and this is the reason. Not many of us talk about it. The World Health Organization report shows that India is leading as the most depressed country in the world, followed by China and the US. Our country has the most number of cases of anxiety, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. It's quite a long article, but that's pretty much,
How have they, since it's such a taboo, there are so many people that don't even say that they are depressed or they have schizophrenia. Yeah. So I don't know how have they done the...
I also think that something, this is just my opinion, I can't really say for sure, but I think that, schizophrenia is still such a lesser understood mental illness that if someone shows symptoms of schizophrenia, you're automatically seen as someone who is, just straight up crazy or mad, because some of the symptoms involve, hallucinations or quote unquote hearing voices. You sometimes literally do hear voices. These are auditory hallucinations. You hear things. Yeah. And so people are like, wait, what voices? What is this person on? What drugs are you taking? So that can be. I think the more severe is the wrong word, but I guess the more obscure, I suppose, for lack of a better way to put it, the mental illness, the more people just kind of write it off as this person's just crazy. So yeah, man, there's still a lot of taboo, even with the podcast. A lot of the times people who wrote to us, they I think a lot of them were just like, thank you so much for doing this. This is something that I never thought I could talk to anyone about, and things like that. A lot of our feedback was that, which was, and it's heartwarming to see that people are taking that step to reach out, but it's also still quite saddening at the same time that there's so many people who said, up until they heard a podcast, two random strangers on the other side of the computer screen or phone or whatever, it's up until that point they thought, we're alone in this. So
that's sad, huh?
It's quite a scene. And there's 1.3 billion of us. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, and I guess the situation is still a little better when it comes to metropolitan cities, but I can't even imagine what it must be like in villages or smaller towns, man.
What seems to be the case, though, if nothing else, is that in the smaller towns or villages, people are a little bit more perseverant in that if something is wrong, the mindset is more of, I need to get this fixed. But the more of the log kya kahenge happens more in the cities as well.
Really?
Yeah. It was something that I found quite interesting. I didn't expect that. But this is what someone I know who did a bit of research around the country had seen firsthand, that there seemed to be, of course, much less understanding, and of course, just across the board, you may have people going ye pagal hai or whatever, but at least in the villages, if someone felt something was wrong, they're like, okay, fine, chalo, I need to help my son or my daughter, my child in general.
Dude, so I would have never thought of that. I would have never. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Where people are more positive towards change, or are more determined to improve their present situation than in smaller cities. But
apparently not. And so this is what I've heard from at least two people who have been involved in this sort of way. There's even an organization in Goa called Sangat, which does some amazing work. I'm just putting this very, very simply, it's a lot more intricate than this, but mental health first aid, essentially. So how to treat or help a person who may show signs of various forms of mental illness. And they do that in lower income and lower resource communities. So, and they've been doing that for years now, and it seems to be something that is, ongoing. A lot of work still needs to be done, but there's been a lot of focus there. I feel that so even Avanti, for example, was telling me some time ago that when like some of her younger clients who come to see her in the context of her being their therapist, there have been points where like the client might be younger, you know, say maybe late teens or early 20s, and they haven't told their parents that they've come to a therapist.
Oh, okay.
But then there comes a point where, you know, they need to tell their parents, and at that point their parent takes them out of therapy and says my child doesn't need therapy.
Okay. So they're in denial basically.
Yeah, they're in denial. So there's a lot of I feel India generally has this thing about keeping up appearances, right? Like,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah,
like I said earlier,
that's true. Yeah, that's
log
true.
kya kahenge?
Yeah.
You know, so everyone is like, oh, but what will the neighbors say? What will this person in the family say? What is this? What is that? Like, everything has to be fine. But I mean...
Yeah, they are always, most decisions are made based on what others would perceive
Yeah,
it
exactly.
to be. So,
which I find a bit ironic because...
it's stupid, man. Like, I mean, I think to an extent, I myself had that ingrained in myself, where there was a point in my life where even like when it came to relationships or like just any decision that I had to take, my first immediate reaction would be to think about what others might think of what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And it took me a while as well to finally figure out that, man, like, it doesn't matter what other people think, because they're gonna judge you irrespective of whatever you do.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean,
That's part of the irony. But like, and the intensity of like traffic on our street, even something as basic as that.
Yeah.
Everyone's pissed off right now on the streets, man. Like,
traffic is one of the biggest mood changers in our country, or in our city at least.
Yeah.
I know that like I've gotten out of my house in like the most positive mood, and I'm going to work, and by the time I've reached work, or like, I mean, even if I'm like getting out of work and going back home and I'm in a good mood, my mood is destroyed by the time I reach home, man, because like I've driven for like 2 hours, sometimes an hour and a half, and it's 14-15 kilometers, man. Like, it shouldn't take 2 hours, it shouldn't take an hour and a half.
Honestly, it's like, it's at a point where it's always been this way for me, where like if someone says something is like 10 kilometers away, I don't understand what that means. You have to give me time. Like, what is 10 kilometers by way of time? Like, okay, it depends what time you go. Okay, suppose I went now it will take you an hour. Suppose I went 2 hours later, then it might take you 15 minutes. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And like I've realized that I have started taking decisions in Bombay, especially whenever I need to meet someone. My decisions are based on the peak traffic hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Mine
like
also.
how to avoid peak traffic hours. Sometimes I would just meet people late night.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, man, I don't mind driving to Andheri and coming and seeing you, because it'll take me 1 hour tops.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
I don't wanna take like 2 hours
Dude,
to drive in bad traffic. The present situation that we are in is I think it's only gonna get worse, which is scary. Because if people are this frustrated right now and they're this aggressive right now, imagine what's gonna happen like a few years from now. Like, I mean, we might I mean, Bombay people are known to talk about Delhi people all the time, and like how aggressive they are, and how the situation's bad in Delhi. But I mean, Bombay is becoming the same, you know, like it's exactly the same. It's just it's probably getting there, like, and it's very close right now. Like, it's not it's nothing to be proud of. Like, I mean, all these people who keep talking about Mumbai has its charm. I mean, let's look beyond that also. Like, we're in a very bad state, I would say.
I know we kind of sound like two grumpy millennials.
Yeah, very
like
cynical, grumpy people. But I mean, if you analyze the present situation of our city and the way things are going right now, and you actually just without any bias look at what's happening right now, this is not the way to live.
Yeah.
Like, the way we are living right now is not the way to live.
Yeah. Like, you have to calculate your entire life based on how long it's going to take you to get somewhere.
No, I don't think we have answers, but we just we're unhappy right now with the present situation, and we don't have answers, obviously. But what we are trying to say is that the situation that the city is in, and the living conditions that we are in right now contributes to mental health a lot.
Yeah.
Like, just these small mood changes, like the traffic situation, the aggressiveness of people, just generally...
Man, taking that train. taking that train, a Virar fast from Churchgate at 6 p.m. is like a death wish, to be honest. And I've done that before, and man, nobody enjoys that trip. Nobody enjoys that trip.
Yeah.
And as soon as people get onto the, I brace myself, like, not only because I'm petrified for my life, but also because my anxiety is kicking in. Like, I don't understand how people think that this is just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, and this is not. Please, before anyone gets up in arms and says, "Oh, why don't you leave?" and all that. Firstly, you. Secondly, it's not a question of us just complaining. I mean, come on, let's get real here. If your narrative is, "Oh, but why don't you leave?" or "This is just the way it is," why do you accept that this is okay? You know, I don't see why that if we believe in the potential of what our country could be, that we accept that this is okay. I don't think we should, you know.
Yeah.
Except I just don't know what we do.
The reason why people complain about this city is not because you're unhappy and you want to leave the country. I mean, it reaches a point where you sometimes contemplate about it, actually, where you think about, hey, I need to look at options abroad or whatever. But the reason why we talk about all this is because we love this country, we love this city, and we want to be a part of it. So that's why we want the necessary changes to take place so that like our living conditions can be better.
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't mean, I mean, I've had that also when I used to complain before, go rage mode on social media and post something, and some people would come up to me and be like, "If you're so unhappy with the country, then leave." And that's not the answer, man. Like, I think,
for the record, it's not that easy to leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Just putting it
easy.
out there for anyone who uses that argument. Trust me, I've tried.
Yeah. I mean, I love this. I love the city. I love our country, and I want to see it get better. And when I see the pathetic road conditions that are there and how people have become so aggressive, because they're all struggling, they're all trying to survive.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. It's just the way the city has become now.
Yeah.
I feel helpless to an extent.
Yeah.
And then when you see certain actions taken by the government where they spend a lot of money on a statue, say for example, or they do certain other things where they're spending the resources of our country into things that I don't think are important right now, because we're a third world country still, and we need to accept that, and we need to invest in things that maybe are needed to improve the basic conditions of our city. And I'm not an expert. I don't understand politics to that extent, so I'm not trying to even blame the government to an extent or say that we need a different leader or whatever. I'm not even getting there.
No one person is to blame.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Mr. Modi, or I'm not talking about BJP, Congress, whatever. I'm talking about just what needs to be done sometimes.
Like he said, you know, we're not just exclusively blaming the government. There's no one person that's to blame. You know, in some way or the other, we're all to blame. You know, simple things like, you know what, let me not throw my trash out of the cab on the street. Let me wait until I find a bin or something. Let me not, or even let me just not spit out a load of pan onto the street randomly. Let me just not spit, you know. Let me not honk outrageously at the person in front of me. Imagine if everyone, or at least even 50% of everyone, thought, you know what, let me just not spit and honk incessantly. Wouldn't even that, like, which is too much of a fantasy in itself. But even that, like something as basic as just not spitting or not honking incessantly, wouldn't that just make a little bit of a difference?
Yeah. A lot of people,
you don't get to blame the government for your honking, bro. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And also, a lot of people go to the education part, that not many people are educated in our country or in our city, so they lack the knowledge of etiquettes. But that's not true, actually. I've seen people who've been driven by drivers sitting in their big ass cars and littering outside, like throwing bags outside of their window. So I'm pretty sure those guys are educated, or they've got at least some form of basic education. It's I think civic sense.
Yeah, it's always like this mindset. It's like, it's not my problem.
Yeah, it's that me first attitude that we were talking about before. So the whole situation of the city is directly related to the mental health of its citizens, and that's why we are coming at. Like, I mean, I think the city is driving people mad in some way, and yeah, I just hope things get better, man. We can only be hopeful, right? Like we can do our little tiny bits, whatever difference it makes, but the most that we can do is just stay hopeful and hope that this present situation of the city gets better.
Yeah, this might sound a little cheesy, but if you're going to take away anything from this video, I think the single takeaway, which is we've heard time and time again, but in the simplest way possible, just do your part, man. As simple as, let me not spit out my gum from this car right now. Let me just hold on to it until I find the bin.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be more complicated than that even. Let me not hold on to my car horn for 10 seconds because I'm annoyed at the guy in front of me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we all know that honking doesn't make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Right? We know this. Yeah. So, I mean, just basic little things that all of us can do.
And we are equally guilty also. We've done this at one point of our life also, but we eventually realized that it's wrong and we need to improve ourselves and think about others before. Like, empathy is something that I am a strong believer in, and I feel like any action that you're taking, you should first think of what immediate reaction it can have in someone else's life.
Yeah.
So have that basic sense of that basic empathy, and just be a little more considerate towards others. And I mean, think about yourself, but think about others as well. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why is your cat called Gaddafi?
Because she's a dictator.